Hey everyone, it is Kelsey Kors with Sweetfish Media, and we are really excited to share with you an episode of The Marketer's Journey from our friends over at Uberflip. The Marketer's Journey is a podcast dedicated to learning from senior marketing executives. Each week, they speak to marketers and learn whether it was luck, hustle, or a combination of the two which propelled them to their latest position. Then they explore how to engage their current and future customers on a path that is similarly planned yet adaptive. The Marketer's Journey features amazing conversations with marketing leaders who share how to attract and convert with personalization from their entire buyer journey. If you think you'll find the show valuable after you listen to the episode, just search The Marketer's Journey in Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast player. Okay, let's get into it.
Hey, Elissa, thank you so much for finding time to chat with us today on The Marketer's Journey. Your journey
Randy.
is awesome. Your journey is so exciting, and the opportunities that you got to see, maybe just a level set for everyone tuning into the podcast. Talk to us about what happened for you in the last year or so. Couple of years.
I have been so lucky. I actually have been so lucky throughout my career, but particularly I'd say the last 12 years. Oh, that's quite a long time to be that lucky. But in the last year, I just retired from Tableau Software. I served as their CMO and head of marketing for about 11 and a half years, from when they were about 5 million in revenue and about 30 people in the company, to literally just over $1 billion in revenue and about 4,500 people. And so it was an incredible journey. And then, as I said, I just retired at the end of last year. And so I've been what I call semi-retired, where I've been advising companies and working with boards and doing a lot of mentoring as well. And it's just been incredibly gratifying to be able to get out there and talk to people about marketing and their journeys and where they're headed, and see these exciting startups and young companies that are doing incredible stuff. So it's been just amazing.
That's all. Both of those aspects are amazing. And I've been very fortunate to be one of the lucky getting advice from you the last little while.
Well, I love what Uberflip does. So highly valuable.
Thank you. So, I mean, the success of Tableau is outstanding. And it's, I think one of the things that I've always admired is how little funding was also taken into that company. How much was it, or how much of it was used?
So they took in 5 million at the very beginning, and then around 2008, right before the financial meltdown, right before, we took another 10, and we never used any of it. Wow. So our co-founders, and particularly our CEO co-founder, Christian Chabot, who had been in and around the VC community, was an analyst for a while, he was very clear that he did not want to give away a lot of the company. And he also recognized the value of bootstrapping. It really forces you to be very disciplined and smart and treat the money like it's your own. And so you try really hard not to do stupid things. You don't have money to blow. So you really are making the best bets you can and doing the right things. And I really appreciate that. And then I also, as a secondary or maybe primary benefit, is it was good for the employees. When you're not liquidating when you're not stretching the value of your company out with lots of investors and diluting yourselves, it really creates a lot of value for the employees. And that's a great thing. That is a great thing. So he just was amazing and had the right goals. And mostly it was about really making sure that we spent money wisely and grew the company organically. Because if people want what you've got, they'll buy it. Having a lot of money from a VC or from investors is not a sign of success. It's a sign of potential, but it's not a sign of success. So when you have to earn the money to prove it, and that's what proves it, that's a great thing. So he always riled against people who'd say, yay, for us, we got another funding round, or we got another. And he'd be like, those aren't signs of success. Those are milestones, sure, but that's not success. Success is signing big customers or signing customers and hitting. Those are your milestones that matter. Those are the things that should be celebrated. And I think he just imbued that in our company and our culture, that's what matters. And we became just a very customer-driven company.
That's really interesting. First of all, I commend that. I mean, we went a long way here at Uberflip without taking funding. We're in that different world now, but we did so from a position of strength.
Yeah, well, that's the other big thing. It's you go to get money from a position of strength. Absolutely. What a difference that makes. Yeah,
absolutely. But I mean, to get to not just $1 billion value, but $1 billion in revenue is extremely impressive on that type of lean mentality. So if we unpack your career to getting to that and being part of an organization where those are the values, would you say that you entered there with that mindset to spend in that lean way, to spend as a marketing leader in that affordable way? Or was that a culture change for you from where you had previously been?
No, I think I always, so I'm pretty old. And so I always kind of had been around companies that were marketing, didn't always get the budgets we needed. So, and I like to get stuff done. I like to make things happen. And so I always looked at the money as like the more I can stretch it, the more I can do and the more I can accomplish. So I think I've always been fairly frugal, yeah. And so, and I didn't, when I joined Tableau, I actually didn't join from like you guys in Toronto. I didn't join from the Silicon Valley where there was a heritage or a culture of lots of money flowing. I joined from a company out in Washington, D.C., and I had worked a lot of my career on the East Coast and some of my career, very little of my career in the Bay Area and some of my career in L.A. And it just wasn't a culture of like, here's all the resources you could ever need to do whatever you want with marketing. And I'm not saying that's the Bay Area culture, but there's a lot of money flowing. So I just kind of came to it naturally like, well, we're small. We got to be scrappy. We got to be guerrilla. We got to stretch our dollars. Let's use our money. The more I can stretch it, the more I can do, the more I can accomplish. I just kind of had that mentality. And so the Tableau mentality really suited me. I like that. It's kind of like sometimes when you have those parameters or those things that you have to fly in these guardrails, sometimes it forces you into very creative ideas. It really does. And I think that was a good thing for us. It made us tight and it made us lean and it made us be creative in ways that maybe having lots of money, it wouldn't have forced us to be creative.
That's amazing. Maybe you can, just shifting gears a bit, aside from the creative side, you obviously were working with a company where data was key. I mean, data was the name of the game.
Yeah.
Where do you think you got your confidence in leading a company that was going to be so data minded? As they say, eat your own dog food, drink your champagne.
Yeah.
What was it along your career path leading up to that gave both the leadership at Tableau and yourself the confidence to take that step?
That's a great question. Because, I grew up in a time, the idea of women and computer science and STEM and math, I was really good at math in high school, but I never thought of myself as that kind of person. So when I went to college, I went into the College of Humanities or Arts and Sciences, and I was an English major. And so I did not think of myself as that kind of like a data person. And so when I got out of college, I was trained to do like nothing. And so I took a sales job with the Wall Street Journal, and I liked the first couple of years. And the second year, the third or fourth year, I got promoted into the big leagues. And I found myself really enjoying the part of it that was explaining the demographics and why Wall Street Journal would make a good audience for it. I loved the market research of it. And I started to realize I really loved the numbers. And I remember my husband saying, well, of course you do. Every time you go to a cocktail party, you're like, your eyes light up when you talk about facts and figures. And I was like, really? I didn't know that about myself. Anyway, that job kind of turned me on to market research. And I happened to find this little company that was doing computer databases and software for marketers, for like one of the very first companies doing it. And I just fell in love with it. Segmentation and customer analysis. And I decided I love this. I didn't love sales. And so I took a step back in my career and went from being like a pretty prestigious Wall Street Journal ad sales rep job with a car phone, and back in the days when they were in your car, and a credit card, to like this little tech company where I was going to be a client service representative. And a lot of people thought I was nuts because it's like, why would you do that? But it was the best thing I ever did.
This was moving over to Claritas?
Yes, I was pretty mediocre as a sales rep, but I realized I had this passion for numbers and data and marketing. And I found this job at Claritas. And the day I walked into that company, I knew I was home. I knew that I was in the right space for me. So, I really felt like that sense of knowing And I maybe didn't even know who I was, but knowing you fit and knowing that what you love to do is what that company loves to do is a really valuable thing to have in your career. And I would encourage people to gain that alignment, gain the alignment between your magic, your superpower, and what your company needs. It just is only going to help your career, and you're going to love your job. You're just going to have fun every day. It's hard. It's still hard. There's still hard things to do, but you're just going to have more passion and more interest in it.
That's awesome. And the funny thing is, as I look at this on paper, is thinking about moving from the Wall Street Journal where you were up and up. Who would have thought back in 1990 that it would be the tech person retiring, due to success at such a young age versus the senior person at Wall Street Journal is probably not retiring in the same way these days.
Yeah, and you know what? It's another good lesson too, because you get a little hung up early in your career on things like, well, I work for, Facebook, or I work for Wall Street Journal, and you don't take chances. Like somebody who's coming to Uberflip or even to Tableau back in the day, it's a risk because you don't have that prestige that's backing you. But if you really pay attention to the fundamentals of a company, the problems they solve, do their customers love what they're doing? Is there growth opportunity? Lean into the growth, even if it's not yet prestigious or not yet known. In your career, it's the time to take risks with companies that maybe don't have that brand yet. And you're going to be part of the story. You're going to be part of the growth of that. So that was a lucky thing for me because I was a little hung up on, well, I work for the Wall Street Journal. That's awesome. And then when I left, it was quite whoa, I work for this unknown named company, but it was the best. Like the one move in my career that was undoubtedly changed my career and my life so much. Of course, joining Tableau even more so, but I would have never joined Tableau had I not made that move back from Wall Street Journal to Claritas. So I encourage people, don't be hung up on the big name companies. Go for the little companies, the ones that clearly have something hot going on where their customers are delighted and they're solving a real problem. And that's what they're focused on. That's where you get the growth. That's where you get the opportunity. That's where you get the learning. And that's what happened for me.
So one last question before we take a break here. As much as you talk about taking a chance, you also were very loyal in staying there for, as you said, almost 12 years.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, was that something that transcended throughout your entire marketing team? And how would you coach other marketers listening to this who are maybe at a different mentality of, well, I got to move every couple of years to move up versus seeing that company evolve?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, number one, you have to think about it more like, am I growing? Am I changing? Am I being exposed to new stuff? And am I learning? And so when I would look at my time at Tableau, it was growing so fast that every couple of years, it was like a new company. It was like a different stage. The old rules didn't apply. We had to invent new rules. So rather than look at it like I need to move companies every couple of years, it's really a question of, am I learning something new every couple of years? Am I advancing either in scope? Sometimes it's not scope. Sometimes it's in seniority or amount of the depth. But really, instead of just looking at the superficial, is the company changing? Look at what's changing for you. And I felt like over 12 years at Tableau that the company was changing, I was learning, and that's what matters. Now, you want to, of course, see movement in terms of maybe you want to see title change, but even at Tableau, I only had 2 titles. I mean, when I started, there were no C levels. It was all VP. And then when I became, quote unquote, C levels, chief marketing officer, was more like, we're going to go public, so we better make you a chief, So I didn't even have title change really, but I did have a lot of growth. And so I would encourage people, rather than say, I got to move companies, I got to see growth. I got to see change. I got to see learning. And that's the thing to look for. And so in 12 years, I never felt like I'm stuck or I'm not learning anything new. I really felt like, okay, man, I'm learning and I'm being the best person or the best worker I can be, best colleague I can be. So this is still a good place for me to stay. Plus it was great people and a great product and great.
That's great. How did you go from 5 million in revenue to over 1 billion? What was the buyer journey? I'm sure there's just this obvious playbook for doing so, but kidding aside, what do you think everyone rallied around it on your team?
Oh, well, so, again, it's kind of depends on what phase you're in, what stage you're in. So when you're 5 million and no one's ever heard of you, and the old school way of doing things is very centralized, and here you are with an incredibly decentralized application that anyone can use and anyone can install, before it was, data warehouses and big platforms, that was a different playbook or a different way than later, even like 5 years later, when you're trying to hit teams and departments and mid-sized enterprises, to 10 years later, when you're going full scale across the entire enterprise, billions and billions of dollars of enterprises. So it varied quite a bit. But I think at the end of the day, there were two principles that I like to keep in mind, and I would remind my team constantly. And that is that, number one, it's always people, individuals that you're selling to. And I would even say, even in the later years, we don't sell to enterprises. I'd say we sell to the people and enterprises. And at the end of the day, even in the beginning of the journey, it was about individuals. So when you start to think about your customers as people, you start to see common things that they need. And then you start to think about, like, why do they want to do business with you? Why do they want to know you? And when we talk about this, we realize, well, people want to come to your website. They want to know what your product can do for them. They want to be made smarter. They want to be made better. So if you're really focused on the individual, the person, and I don't mean just like, even in big enterprises and big deals, and when it's a big committee, a buying committee, it still matters. You're talking to people, individuals. And if you're focused on what they need, which for so many of them is, I want to be made smarter. I want to be made better. I want to be made faster. I want my team to be faster. It's a lot easier to really focus on what are the right things to do when you think about your customers as people sitting down, on a laptop or on a phone or whatever during the buyer's journey. You can really get a good idea. And no journey, it's rare that a journey, they're practically unique, right? So you can be really smart too about thinking about them and sort of thinking about their journeys as, well, yeah, there's a typical path, but there's so many outlets from that path and so many different directions. You better have a pretty good understanding of the different ways you can make them smarter and ensure that your content and your message is right there with them when they need to be there, according to their map of the journey, not your map of the journey.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. As you're talking through that at the beginning, I was thinking, okay, think about the audience. And as you put it, you have so many different audiences, different buyers. Yeah. I know at Tableau, you had different segments between enterprise and a small business customer. But I like this idea of, if I'll paraphrase what you were saying, we have to engage these audiences, but then we have to actually make them smarter by delivering them into content.
Yes, absolutely. Huge believer in that. That's why I think what Uberflip does is so important, because it's not in your control like it used to be. I mean, we used to be a bunch of marketers with megaphones and just outbound. And really, I used to say this all the time to our CEO, my goal is 100% free leads inbound, because we're just known for the place to come if you want to get smarter. And so I think that your content, the right kind of content at the right time in the right format for that buyer's individual's journey, what their map is of how they see their future, that's the key. That is the key to deliver that. And it's really, really hard to do. And so you do a lot of summarization. There's certain segments and certain kinds of paths, but you got to have the flexibility to be there on an individual basis for every buyer, every prospect, every customer, because customers rebuy all the time too, in the right way for that individual.
So a question that's more in the weeds perhaps, but hopefully people listening can generalize this back to themselves depending on your answer. As you scaled at Tableau, with the reality that you had these different audiences that would grow in, and as you said, sometimes we were selling into teams or departments versus, let's use something as simple as enterprise versus small business. Did you have two different teams for each of those segments? One team that would understand how to make Group A smarter and another one focused on Group B? Because sometimes those buyers are so different. It's hard for us as marketers to think about segmenting and messaging to both.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So in the later years, we did. In the beginning years, we didn't, because actually it was really hard as a startup that was kind of disrupting a category. Not kind of, that's what we did. Really hard to get the attention of the big guys. So at the beginning, it was really about getting grassroots, literally one person buying one copy, one seat of Tableau, and then getting it to spread. And at the beginning, in the early years, most of our business came from the SMB or mid-size enterprise rather than enterprise. And over the years, the dollar shifted. And so that's when we had to get better. And we did have people who started to really focus on enterprise, really focus on supporting enterprise selling. But in the early years, it was a very phone-based sales strategy that was land and expand. So it was one person buying one license or a couple licenses. That's a very personal sale. But then as we grew, we had to rapidly be able to keep up with where our customers were going. And over the years, it definitely shifted to more the big dollars are with the enterprises. But we still loved our SMBs and our midsize, because they were just a different animal, and they took a chance on Tableau earlier, and it was fun. It was really fun working with those kind of customers, because they're a little bit more looking for an advantage, and they'll take some risks that maybe some of the larger enterprises don't. That being said, I don't want to discourage people, because even within an enterprise, you're going to find these people who are willing to take a chance on a small company or a mid-sized company. And so don't give up on enterprises. Treat them like people. Find your champions, find your individuals who are willing to take you forward, because they'll make a huge impact on your business. So, but it was definitely a challenge. We definitely did morph into having some of our team who understood enterprise really well, and some that continued to stay with the commercial business, particularly though in product marketing. That mattered a lot. We really had to nail the messaging. The messaging was a big deal, because at the bottom, at the foundational level, you're selling the same message. You're trying to give them the same benefits. But above that, very close to that layer is like, look, the reality is I work in a big scaled enterprise that has got all kinds of governance and security issues. And an SMB doesn't have those issues. They want more self-serve, and they don't even want to deal with a lot of IT issues. Just install it, or just give me a SaaS subscription or whatever. So you have to start refining your message and ensuring that at the core, people understand what Tableau benefits are, but that it can work in your organization is the part that was the part that you really had to start stratifying intelligently.
So one last question, then we'll start to wrap up here. But as you hit on that idea of how important product marketing was to the messaging and understanding the human, as you put it, who would you say kind of governed the overall message, though? Is it product marketing, or is it the content creation teams? Does one inform the other, or do they have to come together?
I definitely say they got to come together. I think the product marketing team was really good about understanding how the product worked or how it had an impact on our customers. So like you might have some folks that were very technical about it, in development but the product marketers were able to take that and put it in human terms, put it in terms that your prospect or your customers would understand, and the benefits of how they get it, and the segments that would buy it, and why certain messages resonate. But then the content team was super important in terms of being able to take that message and then push it throughout all the different kinds of content that were going to be attractive to the different audiences and different segments and different people that you're attracting. And then, of course, you can't forget your demand gen people who put it out through the channels. I mean, that's super important that they get great content to the right audience in the right way. So I would say product marketing was core to like, what is the message and how do we talk to these people? Content was absolutely critical for like, well, how do we, tell that story in an effective way? And then how do us demand gen get that story out? And the three of those groups really have to collaborate intelligently to make sure you're putting your effort into the best kind of content for the best kind of audience. Because as you know, Randy, marketing departments end up sometimes creating way more content than is necessary, and they often don't know what works. And so if you can get those three groups to really collaborate well, you'll create deeply useful content in the right amount, which usually means lesser amounts for the right audiences. So they value it very highly. And it requires all three of those groups really working together.
We have unpacked your career. We've unpacked how you won over buyers to scale to $1 billion in revenue. But amid all those times, how did you keep sane? How did you find time for yourself, and you alluded to your husband. How did you balance that?
It was hard. I look back now as a semi-retired person and think to myself, I could have done that better. But we love, as a family, I've got 2 kids. We love to travel. And so, just getting out of the office and getting out of your environment just refreshes you in a way that 3 days, a week away, give yourself time to let go. It just refreshes you. It gives you new ideas. It gives you new perspective. And I think, so a couple of places I went to, we were in Colombia, which I loved. Colombia. It was incredible. Bogota was amazing. And then over this last summer, we spent a month in Vietnam and Shanghai. We went to Shanghai and lived in Shanghai for 2 weeks in an Airbnb. And it was just fun to just be in this rhythm of a city, an incredible city, for 2 weeks, just living there, not quite as natives, but as just part of the community. We put our kids in a local Chinese language school, and we just had a great time. And again, it just changes your perspective. What I've learned since retiring is that I really wish that I had spent more time getting away from the office. I loved customers. I love seeing customers for sure, but also just going to conferences and talking to interesting people and being part of marketing groups and just getting out there and just changing your perspective, taking time. I think looking back, I wish I had spent more time. I mean, you always feel like I got so much to do. I can't leave. Oh, gee, I was going to go to that meetup, but I'm not going to go. Go to the meetup. Go talk to people. Go get a different perspective. Go ask for advice. Call people up. I wish I'd done more of that because I think it really helps, again, that perspective shifting and just the input as well, just to give you just different ways of thinking about things. So I think that's the thing to do.
That's great. And you know what? You're doing a great job at doing that now through advising, through this podcast, where I think a lot of people are going to take a lot of key takeaways away. And if you want to take Elissa's feedback to heart, tune into all of our other podcasts and listen to some of the great marketing leaders who are sharing how they do it. Take tips from each other. I think that's what marketers are very great at, is being generous with their ideas. And you've been just that today. I can't thank you enough. And for all of our listeners who have tuned in, thank you for tuning in. And thank you so much, Elissa Fink.
Thank you, Randy. It was great.
All right, everybody, we really hope you enjoyed The Marketer's Journey. Again, just search The Marketer's Journey in Apple Podcasts or wherever you do your listening. Subscribe, leave a review if you like it, and tell a friend if you think they'd enjoy it. Okay, until next time.
I hate it when podcasts incessantly ask their listeners for reviews, but I get why they do it, because reviews are enormously helpful when you're trying to grow a podcast audience. So here's what we decided to do. If you leave a review for B2B Growth in Apple Podcasts and email me a screenshot of the review to james@sweetfishmedia.com, I'll send you a signed copy of my new book, Content-Based Networking, How to Instantly Connect with Anyone You Want to Know. We get a review, you get a free book. We both win.